Dear children, we all have complexes. Nobody is perfect. Today at our hand we have a play On the Face of It by Susan Hill. Now Susan Hill is a prolific writer, critic, reviewer and editor, and her work talks a lot about loneliness and isolation. This is the topic that we have today, the loneliness and isolation faced by Derek, a young boy. This play has 3 scenes and 2 main characters, Derek and Mr. Lampe. Derek is a young boy, about 14, with a disfigured face because his face was burnt due to an acid accident, and he has an equally disfigured self-esteem. He is a very complex-ridden boy. Then there is Mr. Lampe, who is also disabled, has lost a leg in the war, but has accepted it and has moved on. Now this play is about how Mr. Lampe, with his spirit and positive outlook, brings about a change in the view of Derek, how Derek looks at life and gives his life an optimistic lease. The themes that the play deals with are many. The main theme is about impressions and prejudices, how we form as human beings impressions that are different, that are not true, and how we behave in a prejudiced manner towards people who are different from us. And the attitude of human beings towards differences. We don't accept that easily, and we don't accept those people into the folds of our normal lives. And how physical appearance can never measure what your inner strengths and attributes are. Also, how alienation due to different physical appearances causes pain in the sufferer who is different from us and we don't even understand it. How we need to accept differently abled and physically disabled people and bring them into our normal routine of life. Now the summary of the play, this play, as I told you earlier, is divided into 3 scenes. The first scene is a longer one because here the transformation of Derek takes place. The summary is, Derek is a young boy who is around 14. He enters Mr. Lampe's garden, which is unkempt, which looks like a deserted garden, and even the house has no curtains. The doors and windows are all open. He thinks that the place is abandoned and he sneaks into it because he is looking for a refuge. Nobody plays with him. He has no friends. Even his parents are not very accepting of him. So he is suddenly startled by Mr. Lampe's voice, who tells him to mind the apples that are strewn on the floor, on the garden ground. And suddenly he feels guilty and embarrassed because he had thought that the place was abandoned. Now he feels like a trespasser. But Mr. Lampe reassures him, says he does not mind strangers, and he tells him not to be afraid. As soon as he hears the word afraid, Derek retorts. He says people are afraid of his face and he is not afraid of anything. Mr. Lampe suddenly realizes that this boy is a very angry boy who has lots of inferiority complex. So he ignores him and he starts talking about his apples and making jelly. Derek does not like the change of topic and he again brings it back and how people don't like him at all, people comment on him. So Mr. Lampe counsels him and talks about weeds. He says that nothing is trash, he is not useless and he should not listen to people's comments. He says that even he is called Lamey Lampe because he doesn't have a leg. He has a tin leg because he lost his leg in a war. And all the children called him Lamey Lampe, but he doesn't bother. He loves all the children more. Then he advises Derek to ignore such comments. And Derek is, however, full of anger and he tells how even his mother kisses him only on the unburned side of his face. Then Mr. Lampe tells him to ignore it and hear what he likes to hear, only the truth. And Derek's thinking also starts to change. And he even comments that he should also think of people who are worse off. He doesn't have a good face, but people have no legs, no arms, they cannot see. So Derek starts changing, he starts realizing. Then Lampe tells him how only attitude matters. He tells him tells him his thought about the buzzing of bees. He says he has a lot of bees and he makes honey out of them. He considers the buzzing of bees as humming, a music, but people consider it a nuisance. So that is how perception changes with your attitude towards life. And he also tells him not to believe everything that he hears. So there is a transformation, a gradual transformation in Derek. And then Mr. Lampe tells him the story of a timid man. He says that the picture that there was a man who used to keep into his room, not go out, because he thought he would die, but finally he died with the picture falling on his head from his own room. So he tells him that it is how, if we don't go out, we don't face the world, we will only stifle ourselves. And there is a U-turn in Derek's thinking. Now Derek lets go of his hesitations and his complexes. Lampe reminds him that he has lots of positives. He has 2 legs, 2 arms, a tongue, 2 eyes, and he is not physically disabled as such. Then he tells him to set his mind and become better than the rest of the people. And all human beings are friends if we consider them friends. And people are never nothing. He says every person has a value in world. This all this pep talk makes Derek very excited, and he thinks that he would love to stay with Mr. Lampe and become his student and Mr. Lampe his mentor. But then again there is self-doubt, and he thinks about his mother. So Lampe again tells him that people worry, but we should not stop ourselves because people worry. Then he throws Derek a challenge. He tells him that he will not come back. And Derek is now all set, his mind is made up, but a little of this hesitation is there, which is also removed by this challenge, and he makes up his mind. He goes home, tells his mother, despite her protests, that he will go and live with Mr. Lampe, and runs back to the garden. But the irony is that as soon as he is back, he finds Mr. Lampe strewn on the floor, fallen from the tree and broken his neck. He is dead, he is no more. This is a symbolic ending. It says that Mr. Lampe has done his work and passed on. He has tutored and trained the next generation, that is Derek, and now his work is done. And Derek has found a new lease of life. Now the title of the play is very important. Susan Hill, with the title on the face of it, emphasizes that appearances are deceptive. They are not what you make. They do not make you. Appearances are only outside. Your inner strengths and your aptitude is inside you.